Hey there, I am Barb Higgins, and this is 1,000 Tiny Steps. In this podcast, I share my stories of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy as I continue to retrace my steps and ponder what led to the death of my daughter Molly. By doing so, I hope to not only help myself, but to bring purpose and possibility to those who listen. If you are ready to laugh, cry, shake your head in disbelief, then tie, buckle, lace up, or slip on your shoes, and join me as we begin our 1,000 Tiny Steps. At about this time of day, on May 6th, 2016, we stood around her bed in a circle. There were doctors and nurses, people I didn't know, Kenny, myself, Gracie, and we watched Molly's medical team do unspeakable things to her body to prove that she was in fact dead. TV shows make unplugging someone on life support an instantaneous thing. You pull a plug and everything stops. It's quite a long process, quite honestly. And before we could even choose a date upon which to do such things as detach Molly from machinery that was keeping her body alive, we had to follow a lot of legal processes, one of which was to prove, in fact, that she was not going to wake up. Molly was just 13 at the time, and as a child, a minor in the state of New Hampshire, law dictates that you make sure. That's for the medical profession, and for them to take care of what they need to take care of. For us, however, it was twofold. It was watching Molly get pinched and squeezed and dug into. It was me watching water get poured into her ear and a Q-tip rubbed on her open eye. Things that would cause an alive human to flinch, maybe call out. And the last thing they did was take her off the breathing machine. They took it out of her mouth. The machine that measured carbon dioxide went up, 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 up. What makes you breathe in, even when you're sound asleep, is that your body registers a level of carbon dioxide that's too high. It needs oxygen, and you automatically gasp. Breathing is funny that way. You can control it, you can hold your breath, you can slow your breathing down or speed it up, but you can be involved in another activity and not even think about it, and you still breathe. The human body is fairly amazing. As I record this episode at 2:30 p.m. on April 20th, I'm thinking back to all of the events and emotions and ups and downs and people and processes and surgeries and announcements and declarations of that week. You're hearing this on May 6th, which is why I'm talking about it. As I record this, I'm looking forward to working at the Boston Marathon tomorrow. By the time you hear it, I will have done that already, and you will have seen it all over my socials. It's a huge step for me going back to Boston. The last time I was at the marathon was about 2 weeks before Molly died. I went with Robin, and we had our usual day. I had a horrible fight with Roy because he had seen pictures of me at the Red Sox game with Doug and was furious. And we fought on the phone, and I did my 100 burpees, 10 at a time here and there. I spent all day, the Sunday before the marathon, away from Molly and Gracie at the Red Sox game. And then I spent all day, Monday, away from Molly and Gracie at the marathon. So the marathon is tricky for me. I had a chance to go the year I had the brain tumors taken out of my head and surgery for my face, but it was too close to surgery. All my BU teammates were there to say hi to Joni and cheer her on. I wish I'd gone now, but I took care of my bald head. May 6th, I'm winding down a really difficult time of year for me. All times of year are difficult now as the mother of a dead child. Everything, every day has a memory, an attachment, or something that I see that Molly should be taking part of or experiencing. I was sitting outside yesterday with my neighbor, Alan, and he was asking me, what are we doing for Easter? It's also Easter Sunday as I record this. And I said that the last time we did anything traditional repetitively for holidays was before Molly died. And that part of our process as a family after she died was to do nothing, recognize no holidays. It was about 2 years that we did this. We recognized nothing. We didn't recognize Mother's Day. We did not recognize 4th of July, my birthday, nothing. We just turned them off. It was too much. Molly was the holiday fiend. She loved everything about every holiday. And as time goes along, Gracie's last true Christmas was 2015. 10 years it'll be this Christmas. It's a long time. She was stuck in that middle ground of wanting everything to be the same and not being able to face how things were. I've had sibling grief in my mind a lot. We don't talk about it enough. That might be my next book. So as I sit here, having just completed 2 episodes of this podcast interviewing 2 amazing women, very different women with very different life experiences and very different things that, in my mind, make them amazing, I'm still smack in the middle of birthdays and Easter and holidays and death days and everything else. Funerals and memorial services and all the memories that go with each of these things. If you listen to my podcast regularly, you know that I came clean in my episode with Skylar about my drug use after Molly died. I've intimated to it, and it's something I need to talk about. And this isn't the episode that I'll go deep into it, but I was a very regular user of alcohol, quite obviously. I was on several antidepressants and anti-panics and everything else. And cocaine. That's an intense drug. And I had a relatively safe connection and somebody that needed it in their life, I guess, as much as I needed it in mine. Became a very controlling mechanism of everything I did for the remainder of 2016, all of 2017, and the majority of 2018. When I think about the multitudes of ways having Jack has saved my life, this is one of them. I'm not sure where I would be had I not taken all those steps to have Jack, but it would be very different than it is right now. When I was getting ready to record this episode, I was looking through my phone. I was looking for a contact, like a picture of a quote. And I came upon a thread with a girl whose mother died by suicide. And we talked about how much we hate when people say, "Oh, you're so strong." And people, even other angel moms, say it to me because what they see, they know how devastated they feel. And they see the outward Barb, my outsides, right? And they look at me as, "Oh my God, I wish I could do that." And I do the same thing. I look at other angel moms and think, "Oh my gosh, it took me 5 years to get a foundation. She's doing it 8 months in." All we look at is how other people are better than we are. But I am not strong. Or maybe I am, but I'm not any stronger than anyone else. I resorted to hardcore alcohol and prescription drug and cocaine use for a long time to even begin to cope with Molly's death and all that I had to do and function and be for Gracie and for Kenny and for my mother and for everybody and for her legacy, right? And all of it. I remember in the throes of our legal stuff with the malpractice lawsuit and the drug use coming to light, how hard that was to not just feel like crap about it. I had somebody involved in that legal process who said to me, "You have a dead fucking kid." You don't owe anyone any apologies. So if you're an angel mom and you've resorted to these kinds of things to get through your day, give yourself a break. And I'll go into it. I'll talk about it because drug use is insidious. And I think Skylar being willing to share her story and be so open about what she's done is brave. And she knows she has her haters and she's able to embrace that. And then you heard me talk to Shawnee about her daughter Bailey's death, a very different death than Molly's. Not much older than Molly, still young and at the beginning of her life. Much more insidious people involved in what led to her walking in front of a car in the dark of night in Miami. Heartbreaking. Shawnee and I share both the legal side of death, child loss. She had a lot of medical issues that hamstrung their ability to care for Bailey. I've been paid a lot of money to be quiet about mine. Very different, but the same, feeling silenced and manipulated and maneuvered and controlled by the medical profession and the medical world. She has a new family, young children that she's had since Bailey. We've shared an IVF experience. She's not as public or open about that, but it's not a secret either. She has major connections with her young ones and Bailey, just like I do with Jack and Molly. I am always humbled and brought to my knees sometimes by my guests. So today I'm talking a little bit about what it's like to be me on May 6th. So the first thing that comes to mind is traditions. From March 20th to May 23rd, so just over 2 full months, it's Jack's birthday, the first day of spring, Molly's birthday, all the cousin birthdays that arrive in April that we used to make a big deal of, Orion and Ian and Caleb, Molly's birthday. April vacation week was always big, Gracie's birthday, right? All of it, all of it. Then death day. I come home from Amsterdam and go straight to the ER. And then find out she'll never wake up day. And then practice the unplug day. And then unplug day. And then Mother's Day. And then plan the funeral and the graveside service days. And then Molly Be the Musical. It's this never ending waterfall of memories and emotions from the tail end of winter. February 28th really starts it all because that was the day I took Molly to the doctor for the first time in the series of visits that she was so horribly ignored. And that chunk of time was a huge buildup of trouble with Kenny and I and all that we were going through leading up to her death. Family dynamics play a huge role in grief. I met this wonderful mom, Jess, and she has conflicting sides in her family. One side of the family dislikes the other. And she has some very, very vindictive relatives, family members that are treating her terribly. And she doesn't know how to handle that. And it's horrifying. I've often said the death of a child doesn't change the dynamics of a family. Kenny and I fight over the same things that we fought about since day one. Molly's death doesn't erase any of the dynamics that we live in. It alters them for sure and adds new dynamics to the mix, but it doesn't change it. And this woman is realizing that the hateful behaviors of some of her family members have not changed, even though her son is dead. And so we talk a lot about that. She listens to my podcasts and some of my lives, and I've shared with her things, just different things. And she's always so utterly relieved because it makes her journey easier. And I think back to my first days and weeks and months after losing Molly, and the stories I read online, and the mothers I met, and the people I connected to the most, and the pictures of the dead children that said, "Barb, look at me and meet my mom." And I have this amazing support group of people that are not anyone I knew before Molly's death. My podcast interview with Eleanor was incredibly triggering for my family, especially our siblings. Some very defensive reactions, which are rightfully so. They have the right to be defensive. Our stories were triggering, a bit of a contest on who had the worst experience with our dad. I haven't shared the multitude of my negative experiences with my biological father. And I'm not sure how the best way is to share those and whether I'll ever do that on the podcast or not. I probably will because don't I tell it all anyway? But that episode with Eleanor and I brought to the surface a lot of family dynamics. And then the finding out I have a new relative connected to that side of my family and all the emotions that go into that, the if onlys and the what ifs. And look how we're similar and look how we're different. I'm blown away by the power of nature and the power of nurture, by the power of biological family, by the power of assigned family, perhaps, and by the power of chosen family. And siblings. We all grow up saying we're going to make it different for our kids. And my children all have half siblings. And they have all of the family dynamics that come with divorce and remarriage and new children. Jack has relatives that live in this town that he seldom sees. Family gatherings are had. There's this big Easter egg hunt, and we're not invited. And part of me is angry about that. Not for me. I understand the dynamics. It's a lot of like, let's just be nice on the surface kind of thing, make it look like we get along. That's how it feels to me. And I watch Kenny struggle and feel hurt, and I watch him not stand up for himself. And I realize that not a sign of weakness on his part. He just aims to keep the peace, and he'll just keep his hurt to himself. Never in my life going to keep my hurt to myself. Forget it. But I worry about Jack and what's the message to him? And, how is he going to feel about all this when he gets old enough to understand that he's clearly left out? He had his first t-ball game yesterday as I record this. By the time you hear it, he will have had a couple more. It was adorable. I jumped right in and helped out. I organized the bench. I got the batters in line, took care of all those details because that's what I do. It was a blast. He had a rough start, but he did great. He managed. And today he and Kenny spent probably a total of 2 hours in the yard, an hour here and an hour there, hitting the ball off the tee, practicing running the bases, practicing throwing. So much fun. So much fun. It was fantastic. When I sat with my neighbor and talked about the holidays and how we gave them up, we don't do traditions anymore. Jack understands the holidays loosely, but I don't make a big deal of them. And there are those who would say how sad that is for Jack not to have these big holiday traditions. But when you have them and you create them, assuming that they will last forever, and you can look back on them with your whole family, everyone that was involved, and then something blows up and you lose a child, traditions become one of the most painful things to process from, because every Christmas you grieve the Christmas that you were supposed to have. You can recreate it all you want. We can recreate Christmas every way to Sunday. Molly is still dead and she's still not part of it. So to pull the decorations down and to set a tree up and to repeat the traditions, to go to Arnie's and get a tree, or to go to the Y and get a tree and to decorate it, and to play the same Christmas CD that we played year after year after year. It was the same one. And have all of those traditions. I don't have it in me to do so. I don't. You know, we had a campfire in our yard for years on Christmas Eve. When you lose something, it makes trying to recover from that particular thing 9,000 times more difficult. So in Jack's life, in the 4 Christmases that he's had so far, one was too young to even remember. He's had Florida Christmas. He's had an at-home Christmas. He's had an Indonesian Christmas, another at-home Christmas, and then I think a Florida Christmas. They've all been different, is my point. He's gotten presents, but there's not this big Santa came and here's your stocking. We haven't done that. And he's too little to feel like he's missing anything. We've done Easter egg hunts, but we didn't even talk about the Easter egg hunt until last night when we went and planted the jelly beans. So we don't do traditions. Every Easter he's had has been a little bit different, and they will remain that way. And he's not a part of a family tradition on Kenny's side of the family, on his siblings' side of the family. Let's do it that way. And so he won't have those traditions to lose. And maybe that eases my mind a little bit. We do continue the birthday cake for breakfast tradition. And I think that that's something that's such a personal family sort of thing. It's different. Our Thanksgivings have all been different. And I don't see that changing. I just think that's how I process the grief. As I continue my journey with having guests on the podcast, coming up, I'll have Eleanor again. Coming up, I'm having a woman that owns a CrossFit gym. I'm having a woman who is another surprise relative of mine who just graduated mortuary college and actually works at the funeral home that handled Molly's funeral. She does an amazing job. These are all going to be incredibly deep conversations that marry into my life as the mother with a dead child, because everything I do is colored by that and tempered by that. As I stated earlier, I'm going to be a lot more honest about my drug use. When you think of drug addicts, you think of Skylar. She's a little rough around the edges. That's who she is. She's had very different experiences than me, and she's connected to a very different aspect of society. And likely, when you think of a drug addict, you're more likely to think of someone akin to Skylar. And that sounds like an insult, and it is not how I mean it at all. We paint pictures in our heads of how things are supposed to look. Movie stars pull it off really well. Rich, fancy, beautiful, flawless movie stars at fancy events with gorgeous clothes, doing amazing things on screen and the big stage. And off screen and off stage, they're high as a kite on coke and meth and all sorts of things, right? I'm so lucky, by the way, that I did not get into anything else. I never stepped from coke into anything else. And I am eternally grateful for that. But I think it's important that people like me share these things. While I have to be careful around the medical malpractice piece, there's a lot more that I can share about that. And I think it's important that people hear those things. That's just what I think. Year 9. Tomorrow will be 9 years since we unplugged Mary Elizabeth Banzoff from life support. She was 13 years and 37 days old. That doesn't get better for me ever. The year she died, I was doing 100 burpees a day with my friend, but I did 100 burpees a day. And then when Molly died, I did 100 burpees in the ER at Concord Hospital the day that she was dying in front of me, and I didn't know it. I couldn't do a burpee for a long time. When they were in the workout at CrossFit, I'd go down and do the first one and I'd start sobbing on the floor. and I just sat the burpees out or I did something else. It took me a long time. So when I started to do the 100 burpees, I'm still constantly struggling addiction. I talk about my drug addiction. And let me say, too, another lucky part for me, I guess, is that with all of my addictions, they're very, very geographically motivated for me, habit forming. So I could use Coke every day for 3 months and then get in a car with Kenny and Gracie and drive to Florida and not even think about it. I didn't have any withdrawal symptoms. I wasn't jonesing to get high. I wasn't. And the person that provided it for me and did it with me would sometimes send pictures of themselves doing it while I was away. And I would look at it and it wasn't even triggering to see it. Right? Talk about manipulative behavior. When I put that to words, it's a little creepy. I feel like I'm lucky that way because when the time came for me to say, you know what, that's it. All I had to do was lock the door, change the way I drove the car, block a number on my phone, and have brain surgery. Ta-da! and then, I could move on from it. I will not lie. There are times I think about how good it felt sometimes, but mostly it was terrifying, a terrifying reality. Back to the burpees, however. So this year I've been doing 100 burpees a day. So as I record this, today was the day, the 20th of April, I finished my 2000th burpee. So by the time you hear this, let's see, 3,000 and then 6 days, 3,600 burpees I will have done by the time you hear this podcast episode. That's a lot of burpees on an old body. I will say that I'm starting to see the benefits of it. My hips and lower back get stronger. My arms get stronger. I build up some muscle that's different than my normal training. So my goal is to maintain this and go as long as I can. I will say at 10 years older, doing the burpees every day is a lot harder on my body physically than it was 10 years ago or 9 years ago. Actually, once we're beyond unplug date, it's 10 years. I'm in year 10, right? It's still, 9 years later, but I'm in year 10. That will be a hard anniversary. So I'm doing the burpees. Yay. I'm making some changes. I'm still battling addiction with alcohol. And I find that Kenny is a main trigger for me. And if I'm the one putting my fist down and doing a challenge or declaring we're not drinking, we cannot drink for a long time, months and months. When we came home from Bali, we didn't drink for 2.5 months. And then this time of year settles around and here we are. I'm 10 pounds heavier than I was 2 months ago. And I think, Barbara, when are you going to get off this hamster wheel? And maybe there's some aspects of the hamster wheel I will remain on for the remainder of my days. I do not know. But I do know that today is May 6th. It was May 6th that I first met Kenny on a bus to Washington, D.C. in 1996. We went on a field trip. We had met President Clinton at Walker School, and he invited that class to the White House to a ceremony. It was the first time I had really seen Washington, D.C. up close and personal in any great detail. I'd gone there a handful of times in college to compete. That was when I met Kenny. And when I look at the ups and downs and the travails of our relationship, isn't it interesting that on the 20th anniversary of me meeting him, we would unplug our daughter, or we would practice unplugging her, that her death certificate would declare her dead 20 years after we met. These are the things that stick with me in my healing process. Look forward to more of these things in the podcast and in the blog. If you would like to be a guest on here, if you listen to this podcast and I don't know you, you live someplace far away, but you have a story that you'd like to share, I would love to increase my circle. Right now, every guest I'm choosing, I know because of either my connections in the child loss community or just they're people that I know. But I would love to have guests that are guests on the podcast because they listened to it. What a great connection that would be for the podcast. So I'll end with one of the most alarming things that sort of came to me as I was getting ready for this episode and in processing where we are. And it's the last time that you do something with somebody. The day that you die, you don't know necessarily when you get up and get out of bed that you'll never do that again. Like when my dad woke up, he did not know that in just moments he would be dead. Like that's it. And so I got to thinking about Death Week. So I left for Amsterdam on a Saturday morning. So I did not know that Friday night was the last night I would sleep upstairs for over 2 years. That when I got up out of that bed and took that shower and had that routine, that it would be the last time for 2 years. Gracie did not know that when she said goodnight to Molly in her bed, and Molly was in her bed, that it would be the last time She would sleep in that room for over 2 years. All the last times when I told Molly I loved her and that she said she loved me too, that was the last conversation I would have with her. The last true hug I would have with her was at the door before I left for Amsterdam. The last time we would decorate a Christmas tree was December of 2015. The last time they would have their dance pictures taken together was April of 2016. So many last moments that you don't realize is the last time you do something until you ponder back on it and reflect. There's so much to grief that goes beyond just the person you're missing. So much to think about. So many awful bad days. So many manageable good days. I hope you all had a great Easter 3 weeks ago. I hope that Gracie had a great birthday. I'm going to be working out my finances with Eleanor, so I hope that we've done a good job there. I hope that my visit with Gracie to Disney was fantastic. And I hope that I've been surviving Death Week number 10. Death Week number 10. Be good to yourself, however that might be. Be good to someone else. Always be good to someone else. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.